Hello, Heart and Soul Gospel Ministries listeners. This is Daniel Kang with Let's Read the Bible. In today's Let's Read the Bible, the prophet we are going to share about is Daniel, who delivered God's messages in Babylon, not in Israel. Daniel chapter 1 verse 1 starts with this. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The southern kingdom of Judah was attacked by Babylon while King Jehoiakim was reigning, and people were taken as captives to Babylon. Daniel and his 3 friends were also taken as captives. Daniel and his 3 friends were still young, possibly in their teens. Though they had to go through such an ordeal, Daniel was a very precious prophet who kept faith as one of God's people in the land he had newly settled. The meaning of the name Daniel is God is my judge, or God judges. It is known that Daniel was from royalty or from a noble family of the southern kingdom of Judah. Daniel learned Babylonian language and culture while he was taken to the Babylonian palace. While he was there, he gained the favor of the chief eunuch of the palace. As mentioned before, Daniel was still young when he was taken as a captive in Babylon and lived there through the fall of Babylon by King Cyrus of Persia. It is assumed that Daniel lived to be more than 80 years old. Just like his name Daniel, God is my judge, he was able to see the demise of Babylon. When we hear people were taken as captives, we imagine that they must have lived under oppression and a lot of pressure, but that was not always the case. It may have been the case for the people who were taken as slaves, but the children of royal and noble families were educated in Babylon and sent back to their former countries that were under the Babylonian control to rule over them as representatives of Babylon. Babylon mostly took nobles, scholars, and experts in various areas as captives. It was not to use them as slaves, but to learn things from them so that they could benefit from their knowledge and improve the Babylonian economy and culture. But they were still captives of another country and were not free in the country where they were held captive. Daniel must have been an encouragement for the people of the southern kingdom of Israel in such a situation. The book of Daniel is a book that shows God is the one with ultimate sovereignty from the time the people of the southern kingdom of Judah were taken as captives from Babylon to Babylon's demise. Foreigners who saw the people of the southern kingdom of Judah being taken as captives said, God, Jehovah of Israel, must have been defeated by the gods of Babylon because of the sins of his people. They also thought that the reason Daniel and his 3 friends did not have to eat the meat which had been sacrificed to idols was because they had a close relationship with the chief eunuch. They also insisted that the reason Daniel was so much wiser than the Babylonian wise men was because he was able to study under King Nebuchadnezzar's care. But the book of Daniel clearly records this from God's divine decree. Just as it is recorded in verse 2, "And the Lord gave Jehoiakim king of Judah into his hand, with some of the vessels of the house of God." The reason the southern kingdom of Judah fell to Babylon was not because God had been defeated by the gods of Babylon, but rather because the one true God had given his people over to Babylon to become their captives. Also, it is recorded in verse 9, "And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs." This also tells us that even the chief eunuch of Babylon was under God's ruling. Also, it is recorded in verse 17, "As for these 4 youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom." This also tells us that the wisdom that Daniel and his 3 friends had was grace that came from God. Isn't God's point of view very different from that of the world? The book of Daniel is a book that teaches us to see things from God's point of view and not our own point of views and thoughts. We will continue to share about Daniel next week. Let's read Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 to 21 together. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate, and of the wine that he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. Among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belteshazzar, Hananiah he called Shadrach, Mishael he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. Therefore he asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself. And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see you are in worse condition than the youths who are of your own age? So you would endanger my head with the king. Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had assigned over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you, and deal with your servants according to what you see. So he listened to them in this matter, and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. So the steward took away their food and the wine they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. At the end of the time, when the king had commanded that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king spoke with them, and among all of them none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king. And in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in all his kingdom. And Daniel was there until the 1st year of King Cyrus. We just read Daniel chapter 1 verses 1 to 21 together. I'll see you all next week. Until then, God bless.